Okay, hello. Um, your I started another little streak. I'm just working on it. Last time, okay, my reset was on Friday. So one, two, three, four. Okay, today is day number five. But this is not the video where I'm just like, oh, look at the benefits I have. It's normal. Like I was on a streak for like 35 days. Then I had diminishing results, so I reset, and then I had an adjustment period. It's difficult when you reset, then your drive comes back, and then you sometimes need some extra time to get back on track. Because when you're completely in overdrive, then it's also not necessarily helpful. You cannot concentrate on your work and so on because you have too much drive and you have to try hard to not look up some stuff or whatever. So there are those periods, but I am recovering now because I allowed myself to reset fully afterwards, so I can build up my energy newly. And I have to say, I did not get as low. So I think I'm already making progress because last time what made me attempt a streak was that I was very low. I already got mirrored socially that my energy is not the highest anymore. I got a bit more ignored and I did not like some comments. Like I thought they are not as positive as they should be from people. And this is why I decided to go on my last streak. Yeah, because I felt a bit low, and my physical body also made me stop edging and so on, and told me, okay, it's time to go on a streak. Yeah, but a big progress is that this time I catch myself quicker. I'm not justifying anymore to just edge every day or every other day. So I quickly recover, get everything out of my system, and go back on a streak. And I think this is very sustainable progress. I'm doing this journey for multiple years, and in general, it got better. I was also in the past always listening to spiritual people. Now I do it much less. Sometimes I still do, and they have really something good to say. But when you listen to them too often, then the messages start to repeat themselves, or you learned all the basics already. I learned all the basics about spirituality. I don't track every full moon, or conjunction of planets. This is lame for me, and it's not really leading somewhere. But I was listening to that woman back then. Her name is Adrian Elise, but I don't know, she always for years she's like saying, yeah, now it will get better, supernova souls, now we get into our full power. Always she's talking for this about this for years, and still we are in the mud. Back in 2020 already she was titling her videos, we are on the brink, on the cusp. Yeah, now 2026, it seems we are still on the brink and on the cusp. But sometimes she said something that really resonated with me, just certain parts. I just stopped following her and listening to her because I don't like this entire copium. This is such a coping type of YouTube channel. You get nothing out of it. Sometimes you do, but in general, it's more like you listen to it so you can cope with the fact that the life still sucks. And you're like, oh, we are all the light warriors, and over time it will by itself get better, and then we are out of this hell. It's not that easy, of course, but she was saying, yeah, we get the glimpses of the positive development and they come more and more often. She said this like, I don't know, 1-2 years ago, but this is really true because I got my initiation when I got my spiritual awakening and I was on my first streak and the energy just dissipated by itself. This was basically my starting shot, like when you start running and someone shoots his gun into the air. Now, it was about personal development and a long journey, unlike I expected. When I got my awakening and I felt so great, and it was my first streak experience, and I did not know about the flatline. It just felt so amazing, and I thought, okay, wow, now I can stay here. It was like click, like this, and suddenly I'm awake, and now life will be forever good. So I had my old life, and now my new life starts, and I'm like enlightened now. I can now walk around and teach others. But none of this is true because we have deep-seated trauma. Our nervous system is knowing the old way. Yeah, but I mean, the problem is even the retention itself, it was not only beneficial, especially the awakening was not only beneficial. I feel like I have to fight with much more trauma than before the awakening, because after the awakening came also the dark night of the soul. And so a lot of patterns hardened instead of getting easier. But it's still the same patterns that are technically rooted in my childhood and youth experience. They are just more hardened, so I can see them better and release them better over time by going inside of them consciously and processing them. This is what I refer to when I say that on the retention journey you have to go to the hell realm or to the shadow realm where you are retrieving aspects of yourself. But the point is that the necessity to stay in these shadow realms gets shorter and shorter and quicker. I learn to pick myself up again and try to go on another streak. I accumulated multiple streaks over the last years, and I do them more and more frequently with more and more success. I see how slowly my life generally gets better, even though oftentimes it does not feel like, and this is the frustrating part about it. I mean, life is always having ups and downs. You always find something to complain about, you know. But when I just focus, for example, on the social part, which is a very huge part because I had bad social experiences when I was younger, I really have to say I made a lot of progress indeed. But just it still comes in waves. So there are still moments when I feel like there is not much progress. Like when just more the negative is prevalent and I'm not very social, not interacting and so on. But then more and more often, if I really track it down, I'm more social. Like I had my deepest moment when I was the most unsocial after my dark night of the soul and so on. But indeed, it got better. I get along with more people. I can share nice moments with more people. And it's not only about people. I can, in general, experience more often a nice moment. But it's still like glimpses. It's not the state that I'm in like all the time. But I'm getting there because my flatline, so to speak, you can define it as a flatline, but I mean actually when I get the flatline and then I even relapse or reset and then I have time when I was edging or whatever. This is what I call technically the flatline if you think about it, because it's like a synchronization. The moment you lose your energy on retention, then you go back into old patterns. So you could say that you're a retainer like full time, even though you're sometimes relapsing, because you're trying and you're working on yourself, and there's not a fixed solution. If you continue just staying on the same streak forever, it also not necessarily helps. I think the human that is still in the progress of learning and becoming, he needs downtime. And then, of course, oftentimes you might overdo the downtime, and I don't say this is healthy. It's definitely not healthy to edge too much and so on. But I mean, healing is an ugly process. It's a sticky, muddy, messy, ugly process, and it involves that you go through stuff that is not nice. It's just not nice at all, and this involves suboptimal behavior. For example, when you're alone and you're edging too much or whatever, or your thoughts are too dirty and you're not like your angelic self. This is all part of the healing. We have a lot of it inside. And I'm developing new ways, that I can integrate into healing and becoming. One of them is, it's just my personal experience. Like I said, it's messy and so on. But especially when I have my downtimes, flatline or something, I sometimes prefer going out with a little edible intake, being high. Normally, by idea, I try to do it so that it's just a bit, but sometimes it's a bit too much because I did not expect that the same dosage will give me a stronger hit. But generally, it can be helpful. I'm not talking like drugs are so good and everything, but it is kind of acknowledged even by normal medical science nowadays that weed and also other substances like mushrooms, which I never really took, Not really, but I mean they have a healing effect. They have ability to heal people if used properly. This is already, there are many studies about this. And so what weed is technically doing is it lets you connect deeper with your own emotions. And you are, based on your emotions, getting assumptions and so on. You're stronger in your emotional body, and you perceive anything that comes to your mind and that you feel more like it's the truth. Like if you're at all smart or sane, you can just still understand, okay, I am biased, I am too much into this, I am too much into that. Let's talk again when I'm sober. So you of course try to also avoid like getting too high or something and talking to people, because you know you cannot function properly. Yeah, but I have a theory that you can function properly if you get rid of your biases, and your biases are inherent to you. They are just amplified by the edible or weed or whatever. But if you learn to handle them better, then you can technically probably also be high around people and still function very well. But for me, this is not necessarily the case. But I mean, I'm also not average. Like when I get high, it's much more intense effects than for many other people who are like stoner and always having a joint and so on. They just function normally. But for me, this is just not the case. I'm super raw. So yesterday I had a down moment. You know, I know that if I would be on a streak, this would not happen in the same way. You know, you get your down moments where you look at your life and you have so many stuff where you are not happy with it and something goes wrong. Sometimes, you know, mostly it's not just happening randomly, I have to say. There's still some trigger that makes you feel like that something comes up and then it reminds you of something, or of a deeper entire structure that you are not happy with in your life, or situation, circumstances. And then you can get into these down states. I know that when you're on retention, then you are much more balanced, your emotions are like better, you can handle them better. You have sometimes like a layer on top of your emotionality and it somehow calms you down. But oftentimes it's like suppression, to be honest. And that's the point. Like if you go on a long streak and you just suppress your emotions, I don't think this is healthy either. So I think flatlines, and not just flatlines, like, I mean, I don't know, it's up to everyone, yeah? But even if you relapse in the flatline, I don't think it's such a big deal. You have to go through the flatline anyway, like, you know, then you can as well just relapse. Like, I'm sorry, like, I'm not such a strict, hardcore ideologist, extremist who is just all the time retaining and whatever. But yeah, the point is, in my opinion, it can be detrimental. Yeah, like you just don't process your emotions, you get rigid, and yeah. But if you like relapse, then you have again more access to your own emotions. So in my opinion, it is helpful. But I have other modalities. You know, there's Kundalini yoga, and I also learned about something new. It's called tremor release exercises, or tension and trauma release exercises. You can look it up. Technically, you lie on the floor. You have your legs up, not completely, but kind of, you know, and you're lying in such a position on your back that your legs start to feel heavy and it's difficult to keep it up, but you try to be as calm as possible. And I think you, in many cases also, you push up your hips, so they're also in the air, and then your entire lower body gets shaky. And if you do it very good, then you also transfer this shakiness into your upper body, into your shoulders and so on. And you do it for a few minutes. It's not easy to stay in the position. This is also why you shake. But the shaking is supposed to release stuck energy and trauma in your energy field. And I have the impression it has a positive effect. So I did this first. People also report it can get you horny. I don't know, I cannot verify. It's possible that when I am on the streak for longer, instead of relapsing, I would try to use this technique to see if it's true. Because I think a little bit of horniness is helpful. Maybe it even makes you concentrate better and get less into brain fog state. I don't know. Like maybe instead of relapsing, next time I will do the tremor release exercises and then do the Kundalini yoga. I think it's a good idea to do it in this order because first you shake up your energy and you shake off what is not necessary there. And then during Kundalini Yoga, you go exactly to the same root chakra that you already was working with during the TRE session. And then during Kundalini Yoga, you basically push your energy up to your crown and so on. Yeah, but it's more pure because you are shaking off the bad parts, I guess. So it's nice. So I did both yesterday. And then I did something that was maybe a bit too much. Yeah, I took too much edible. Because when I do it at home, it does not give me such a strong effect. So I was doing it out of naivety, so to speak, because I just not was expecting that it activates me so strongly. It's just a different thing when you go outside and you're in a new environment that you're unused to, and you're not locked on a screen or something that you're just watching. And then also when you are interacting with other people and their energies and it's a social situation, for me personally this also activates all my worries and so on when I'm around people and I worry that they might judge me. And then I'm much more activated. But on top of that, it was probably because of the TRE to some degree and definitely also because of the Kundalini Yoga. It just gives you a stronger high and I was just not prepared for it. But in general, if I'm a bit high and I go out, I like it because sometimes it helps me think in a more positive way about my life. I know this could also be called copium, but I wouldn't say it's really like that because sometimes you need to think from a better point of view and you can later still take it with you and remember when you're not high that there's another way of thinking about stuff and it's all not that bad. And it feels really assuring because in many cases we beat ourselves up for a lot of stuff that is not really our fault, or we are not acknowledging that we're just healing and we are too hard on ourselves, right? Yeah, so it really helps. It also can help a lot with social situations, sometimes to be high for me. Like, I'm honestly not trying to recommend anything here, I'm just sharing my experience. It's kind of a science to me as well to talk about it and just see what's going on. Yeah, because it helps you also step out of your insecurities sometimes. In my case, it can help you to more from the outside view look at yourself basically and understand where you have shortcomings, where you are not dealing correct with something, you have some predisposition in your mind that is actually not helpful. So I think it's really cool and it gives some magical moments, and honestly it can upregulate your system because afterwards there's an afterglow sometimes, especially if you do it not too often or something. Maybe if you do it once, then you have an afterglow and you just feel more positive in general. So it really pushes your energy up. So if you do it repeatedly, it can also push your energy down again. But in general, this is how it works. Yeah, but yesterday I was way too high. Anyway, I think the point about tremor release exercises, they also say you shouldn't do them too often and they are so powerful. I actually found out about these because I was searching on Reddit about flatline and so on retention, and someone exactly said, yeah, retention alone will not help you because you always get into flatlines and then you can as well just stop it. And to harness the positive of retention forever, you need to also do the trauma release, and once you can do that, then you can indefinitely stay in the retention power. And this is exactly what I think. So I'm doing these exercises now from time to time when I feel like doing them. But what they do is they release the trauma and you don't really have to face it. Many people do it who are having PTSD. So in the military, actually, TRE is used heavily. And then you don't need to all the time confront yourself with this trauma. And I'm using the word trauma in a broad way, of course. But you just shake it off. But it doesn't mean that it's directly gone. It still means you have to afterwards integrate. So you will go out of the house and you will still process whatever got shaken free. And yeah, this explains my yesterday's experience, which I will go more into. But in general, TRE, the way I do it is, of course, I said I put my hips up in the air. Normally there are more exercises than this, but I don't really have the time or motivation right now to do more. And I think this already has an effect, so I just stick with this one for now. Yeah, of course, what is in the hips area? The most important chakras for trauma release, I guess, anyway. Because there you have the root chakra, that is about survival. There you have the sacral chakra, sexual issues, like, I mean, retention is exactly about solving your sexual issues and urges, right? So it makes sense. These are the lowest chakras, also the solar plexus, the chakras where the highest amount of trauma is stored. So you shake it loose, and then still it has to come up and you have to process it, but you let it go. You don't have to marinate in it forever and ever, you know what I mean? This is why TRE is supposed to be so groundbreaking and transformative. Many people have very positive experiences with it. I looked into it, you can do the same. So I think it's very promising, on top of retention, to do this from time to time. And maybe this is such a thing you can do instead of relapsing, who knows? I will figure that out. So yeah, but I was too high and I went out, and it was partly great and partly not. In general, it definitely boosted my mood because today I feel much better. So I don't need to take any edible or anything, but yesterday I was really frustrated and low. But it was cool, like I was sitting in the bus, this is when it really kicked in with being high. And partly the problem is I was too stressed because I always am worried that I will do something weird because I'm high, that I am looking somehow different and people will judge me. And this takes away a lot of the pleasure of the experience in the moment. But I'm like a junkie, so I like it's like a roller coaster for me. So I still enjoy it, even though I shouldn't do it like this. I should do it more regulated. It was too high dose and so on. But it's cool in general because, yeah, you see exactly where your issues are. And maybe it helps to let them go, those issues. I mean, today I'm much more calm. Today I am like on a streak. I mean, I am on a streak, but it's small. But I felt confident. I could lock eyes with people and I don't care anymore. I think my system got exhausted from yesterday evening. So who knows? You know what I mean? In general, it was very interesting. I mean, like I said, this is the traumatic part that come up when you are too insecure and too worried about people. I hope I can just work past them. What this experience showed me is how life could be. I will go also into the positive effects of what I experienced yesterday. But it also showed me what is still in the way of me being able to actually hold this frequency. I can totally not hold this frequency, because if I would try to, I would face all of this trauma, all of this insecurity, and it would make me stiff and stressed. Then there are moments where you can let go and then you're back and again stiff and stressed. So I have to shake off a lot. And at least I have hope now because I saw this again and I needed this reminder. It was really like a reminder to see again how good life could technically be if I would just be able to perceive it from the right point of view and not get stuck and focused on the bad parts. So yeah, like already on my last streak, around day 30 or whatever, I had these moments when I was completely in the moment. So if I can harness them and live more in this state, then this is exactly the perfection that I'm talking about. And I was not high and nothing. But yesterday it was similar. Sure, this is artificially enhanced, but sometimes it really can give you hope. I mean, I was there in the bus just looking out, and you know, everything looks so much more beautiful when you're high. But I know it's possible without being high. So it was just a glimpse of where I'm trying to get through streaks especially. And this is what always pulls me back on track and trying new streaks later on. You know, I live in a kind of big city, at least from my personal perspective it's big, even though other people would argue it's not. I'm sitting in the bus, I look up and there's the huge towers and so on, and they have shiny stuff moving on top of them, you know, advertisements and stuff. And I felt so alive and so in the moment. And you know, when you're super high, easily, effortlessly, you think in higher concepts instead of normal. Like, I was aware that this is just an incarnation and how enjoyable it is to actually live. and I'm here with so many other people, and we just opted in from the everything into this suboptimal 3D space, but it's just a game because we all die again, and we're just here to play it out, and nothing really matters. It's such a waste of thinking that you normally just simply don't do. But I think it's possible to get there. But it's just not sustainable as long as you have so much trauma that at the same time also comes up. And this is also why being high oftentimes feels like a roller coaster. Yeah, and I already know that Kundalini yoga has an effect on the entire experience. Like normally, if I do Kundalini yoga, but not often, and then I get high, I get a much more positive and healing experience. This time it was more difficult because I was around people and so on. And who knows what's the effect of TRE on top of that. But in general, Kundalini yoga and then high gives you a better feeling. So yeah, different systems, they play into this entire thing. And I'm sure, I mean, I hope, this is my life goal, I can at some point stay in these higher frequencies without having trauma that makes it unsustainable. Yeah, so I technically just have to release the trauma and I will be able to stay in higher energies, is what I hope. Then I can also be on a streak and not get into a flat line and stuff. So the experience was great. Also, I left the bus and I was walking and feeling like kind of stressed and insecure because too much energy. And a guy was walking in my direction and he also felt a bit stressed, and I realized it's because I look super like angry and pissed and like fuck off, don't get too close to me. You know, my survival mechanism was turned on, and this is, I guess, how I was looking a little bit. And so he of course also was walking a bit like in an erratic way. I think someone was walking by from the side and he walked too close to me when he was passing. I was thinking to myself, boy, he could be a bit more chill. You know, people will play so many games on a subtle level. When you have an intimidating aura, then they will test you like on purpose. I mean, I know this about myself even. Even I do this. I don't like to admit it, but sometimes I do the same. I'm walking, I think someone is getting too close to me and it gets me stressed and annoyed, and I also walk too close to him and like I want to go through here, you know, not you, who are you, who do you think who you are? And so people will do these little subtle signaling. And normally it would stress me out. But because I was high, I was like just owning it, and I was like in peace about it. You know, when you are in peace, then your surrounding changes like quickly. And I guess it is not supposed to always be perfect. This is also something I'm learning. Like it does not matter that everything is always perfect. What really matters is how you react to that. Even during my streak, I noticed that. So I could just catch myself. I realized it doesn't matter and I don't feel insulted. I was more like, this is not how it should be. You know, but like in a friendly way, I was thinking. Like I was not judging the person. I was more like, he should chill, I should chill, we should all be more in love. And this is such a disarmoring positive energy that I was feeling. And then I was walking further and there were other people coming from the side because they needed to go from right to left or whatever, left to right, doesn't matter. And I was walking and having to pass them, and suddenly I was so chill, and I realized how everything happened in a flow, and you know, it felt like the energy of the entire situation adjusted and was super flowing like it's supposed to. And you know, you start to feel like a people bender. I mean, we're all like benders of reality, right? And people are nothing else. People respond to you. I already as a child learned in school, as a teenager, you cannot not communicate, and this is so true. That's the point. We are always in every moment giving signals and everything is adjusting to our energy. And because I was so high, it was so easy and effortless for me to just let go and be in the flow for that moment, because you realize there's no end and no beginning. Life is eternal. Everything that happened in the past doesn't matter. It's an endless flow. You don't know what was first, chicken or egg. You have to just in a moment stop, breathe deeply, and be positive, and the life will mirror that back to you. And it doesn't matter what happened in your childhood or whatever, because it's an endless cycle. You don't know why the things happened in your childhood. Maybe it's karma from previous lives. and who knows how all of this came to pass, but you just don't care, because in this moment you're completely in the zen, you're completely in the now moment. And so you stop thinking in terms of this is what happened in the past and this is why it's okay that I am the way I am now. No, you're just directly at peace. You're completely one with everything. This is oneness, and this is how it feels. And I'm trying to get there. You know, if you're such a person, if you really get there, then you're a natural healer. And this is what the world is supposed to need soon. I was just recently listening to a guy, Lee Harris. In the past, I listened a lot to him, but I also stopped because it gets repetitive. But yesterday, I saw a nice forecast of him, and he said in 2027 and 2028, more stuff will be revealed to humans, that is like Epstein files and so on. And people will wake up more and more. And he said the light workers who are taking position now, they will more and more get into their power. So when humans will need them, because the hopelessness will be so big on the earth, that at this point the light workers will already have processed their stuff and they will be there and can help humanity. And I'm thinking I'm on a good direction here to achieve that, because you know, if you just heal yourself and you are naturally emitting those higher energies, you don't need to do much more. You can just talk in the flow and it will be exactly the right words that help someone out. They feel it in your energy. Basically, it's like with those dogs that some people will take for themselves that are supposed to be healing dogs. Do you know what I mean? Therapy dogs. As a human, it's not much different. You just by existing emit a positive energy that already is therapeutic. But yeah, it was not all perfect. I have a lot to fight through and figure out and dissolve. But if you're high and you see it so blatantly in your face, how absurd it is that you are so tense and so on, then it helps release. And like my personal issue is I'm tense when I think about what could happen. But then normally when I really interact with people, just by interacting, I can intuitively feel how their energy really is. And it will oftentimes calm me down subconsciously and I'm more chill. So I'm mostly so stressed when I'm just by myself in a social space, but I'm not calibrated yet. But yeah, when I arrived at my girlfriend, I have to say we had an issue because of something. The issue would have happened anyway, so actually I was just more outspoken because I was high, and actually it was necessary anyway. But later it was just a bit hard to handle everything, because then it was hard for me to let it go, and it would probably be easier if I would have been not high. And then I was biased a lot and micro-analyzing her facial expressions and if she is hostile or not towards me. And of course, if you do this, then you fuel it instead of taking away energy from the negative circumstance. But this is an advanced layer. I mean, if you think about it, relationships come into our lives as growth opportunities. So it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. But yeah, in this case, of course, it's also difficult when you're too high. Like I said, I was not planning to get so high. It was overdosing, basically. But nevertheless, the experience was really eye-opening and divine. I could imagine myself getting on lower doses of weed from time to time and go through the city or something to get more of these positive glimpses and maybe integrate them, but also emit the positive energy while just walking in the city, and maybe somehow it gets stuck in the energy and raises the energy of the city. But as long as I still also carry the negativity, I wonder to what degree this is what I am sending out. And this is of course sad. But if this world would be good, then I would have also not accumulated so much worries about how people react. It came all from other people, so I'm kind of processing the energies of the globe. Wherever I go, I process that energy as well. I am technically also just a mirror of society. There's reasons why I am the way I am, I have to say. Yeah.